The ProAct Know-How.
Hi, this is ProAct Sam. Welcome to this episode of Living and Working Abroad. From the beginning of August 2021, there's new EU Residency Rules for the permits that third country nationals as well as EU residents need for living and working abroad in the EU. Now, what this means is this was an introduction that was introduced in 2019, but it wasn't implemented until the middle of 2021, until the Brexit transition and grace period was over at the end of June. The UK nationals now become third country nationals for new expats living and working abroad in the EU from July 2021. However, other third country nationals that could apply for EU citizenship could be those that are married to an EU citizen. And that could include still a UK expat who's got EU citizenship based upon residency before 2020. So as you can see, this is going to get quite complicated, which is why it was left for an EU-wide reintroduction of the new scheme from August 2021. And in this vlog, we're going to go through the details of that, try and answer some of the questions that people might have. So if you're an EU citizen, if you're a citizen of a country, it's a member of the EU state, then you've got the four freedoms to move yourself, your business, your services around the EU. However, if you're living and working abroad still within the EU as an EU citizen, you still need a residency permit if you're going to go into that new country. That resident permit is the EU way, but it also would be a prerequisite, for example, if you were German going to live and work in Spain, or if you were Belgium going to live and work in Cyprus. So an EU expat to get a tax residency in another EU country needs to have an EU residency. And a third country national will always need a visa to enter an EU country, but if they're connected, if they're part of a family group that has got EU citizenship, either historically, including UK expats, or through marriage or just their current family situation, then they can still apply for this EU residency card. What that EU residency card does, it allows them to move cross-border within the EU without passports and without visas. Now, how important is that? Well, if you're a UK citizen, you've got visa-free travel to 154 countries around the world, including all the EU countries. So maybe it's not that important, but what it does do is it helps the flow of people within the EU without restrictions, while there's still this extra level of ID that's required, not just in their home country. ID is a step below passport. An ID in any EU country is good for that country, but not to go cross-border. You would need a passport. But like in the United States, the idea is you can travel within the EU without a passport, and that's what the purpose of this new regulation within the EU is. So if you're an EU expat and you're going to live and work in another country in the EU, you need to get a residency permit in that country. And that is under sort of standard rules. You've got that freedom of movement, but you've still got to be able to show that you support yourself based upon the local rules of each country. The big change that's come in from July 2021 is that those ID cards now include biometric data as well. So 100 years ago, passports were introduced for international travel. Border-free travel has been introduced as a concept within the EU, and the ID card and the Schengen Agreement area is a way of having this visa-free, passport-free travel area within the EU. The ID card now has been ramped up So it's one step closer, you could argue, to a passport, in that now it's got to have, for each member state of the EU, at least 2 forms of biometric data on it. So biometrics have been around for about 20 years. They've been introduced into international travel passports over that time. We're all familiar with travelling abroad before COVID, where you would now got facial recognition and fingerprint recognition, as well as the biometric data that's contained within your passport when you go across any border. So all the information is being taken now in a passport. Now it's got to be included on an EU ID card as well. So countries like Cyprus introduced this soon after the legislation was passed, but it's now obligatory going forward. So any new non-EU citizen or any EU citizen applying for any sort of residency card within the EU needs biometric data to attach to their local ID card, which is a minimum of facial recognition and 2 fingerprints. It could be more, that's at the discretion of the individual states within the EU, but that has to be a minimum. So if a French expat wanted to go and live and work in Cyprus, or a Swedish expat wanted to go and live and work in Cyprus, to register for social insurance and tax and get that ID number for that work in Cyprus, they need to get the Cyprus Residency Permit. Not a visa that a third country national would need, but it is still a residency permit to get the tax number, the social insurance number. If not, even if you're working cross-border, you could be doing work for a Spanish company, living in another country like Cyprus or Germany, and you risk being taxed at source for the income that's coming from your Spanish employment, because you haven't got or can't prove a tax residency anywhere else. So you have to have the tax residency. To get the tax residency, you need the ID, and this includes biometric data. Any expats that are third country, including British expats that still want to make an appeal to claim for their residency on pre-Brexit rules, is subject to having to resubmit their application. So any British expats being granted citizenship, or any EU expats in the UK being granted settlement, I did mean EU residency, not citizen in the country, EU citizenship, with the residency, that if they haven't got biometric data in a current application which is still being processed, they will now be required to have that issued, and any new application will require that biometric data. This is standard in Cyprus and in the UK, and it's now introduced throughout the EU. Does this stop EU nationals travelling to the UK or UK nationals travelling around the EU? Not at all. The international law applies, and the EU rules are just a variation of that. So any person can, under international law, travel to any other country around the world on a 90-day holiday or short business trip visa without any restriction, other than the local country could still require you to have an entry visa. This doesn't apply to the UK necessarily. They've got 154 visa-free travel destinations around the world, including the EU countries. If you are a contractor with a branch or business interest in an EU country, you can still go to work in that country, stay on that trip for up to 90 days working there without becoming a tax resident, and then return home. In the Schengen Area, the Schengen Area is quite complicated because it's not the EU, although it's an EU agreement. It includes the wider countries of the European Economic Area, the countries that are not members of the EU, like Norway, Iceland, are members of the Schengen Area as well. So, but Romania and Ireland and Cyprus are not members of the Schengen Area. So within the Schengen Area, If you're traveling for work or for business or for holidays to visit your holiday home, in any Schengen Area country, you can only visit for 90 days out of 180. 90 out of 180. So you could come June, July, August to stay in your Cyprus villa, but that was not a good example, in your French villa, but then you have to be absent for at least the end of the 6-month period before you come and travel again. If you've got the EU Residency Permit, which UK expats resident and with a holiday home before 2020 should have, then they can travel backwards and forwards freely. EU citizens can travel backwards and forwards freely. They don't have this restriction, but non-EU citizens are restricted to 90 days in 180 in the Schengen area. Going beyond that, but when you consider Romania, Ireland and Cyprus not part of the Schengen area, so actually you can be in Cyprus, leave for a week, come back and have your next 90 days. And as long as you don't go over the 183 days for tax residency, you can have effectively a 6-month block with a couple of holidays in there and still be not tax resident in Cyprus. But you have to be tax resident somewhere. Exchange of information is closing in. From 2022, tax on property rentals, including holiday lets, is going to be gradually enforced to a wider degree throughout the EU and around the world. And so there's going to be less hiding places for discrete offshore income, and tax residency will be required. And essentially under exchange of information, the income is either reported in your local country where you're a tax resident and own the asset and income, or in your home country where you're a tax resident but you own that overseas business or property rental investment. So these things are coming in. Another thing to consider, that in 2022 the EU are introducing a similar scheme to the USA. Anyone who travels to the USA will know that there's an electronic travel authority that they need to attain before they go to the USA. This is not a visa, but it's still something you have to apply for and get before you travel. It's not unlike the COVID passports that have been introduced over the last 18 months to allow travel with the COVID arrangements, and it's based upon that. Be the same sort of thing for travel in and out of the EU country. You will need an electronic travel authorization, not a visa, not an EU residency. You'll need that for your trips into the EU, whether you're an EU citizen travelling within the EU or UK into the EU. So it'd be for all holidays, all business trips, whether they're 90 days or whether they're longer, whether you've got an EU residency permit or not. This all sounds really simple, I know. If you've got holiday homes and you want to visit their holiday home, do your own repairs, manage it, or take an extended break there, but have it rented the rest of the year abroad, or if you're a working nomad, or if you're somebody that wants to work remotely in another jurisdiction, or even if you've just got business and branch offices in different countries around the EU and the UK, then the complexity goes up slightly, but it's not that complex. It's more akin to what's it like for the rest of the world. So if you've got EU citizenship, in summary, if you've got EU Residency Permit, the EU citizenship as it's called, that allows you freedom of movement in and out of any EU countries without a passport, especially within the Schengen area. Outside the Schengen area, you do still need a passport for travel. You can use a passport for travel anyway. UK expats have got 154 visa-free travel destinations, including the EU. But if you want a tax residency in an EU country as a nomad or holiday let or working remotely, then you do need that EU residency permit, which is going to include biometric data going forward, and the criteria will be slightly more for an expat living and working abroad. For more information, contact us at proactpartnership.com. We've got a great retained client service where we can give you advice and guidance throughout the year and help you with your tax registration, split year treatment and returns, or manage your business or your trust or your family overseas property. But contact us to find out more at proactpartnership.com, or go along and register and join us as a member of our retained client service at proactpartnership.co.uk, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.
The ProAct Know-How, brought to you by ProAct.